Peace. Akili Damone Height, reflecting on my past so that I can make better decisions in the present to create a better future. So looking back, the past 30 years of working in the corporate structure, because it has been, as I think about it, it has been 30 years as of this summer, this past summer of 2024, marked 30 years in the corporate world. I've had some ups and downs. I've had some wins. I've had some losses. But one thing is certain. Life has been far from boring. So I can honestly say that I've had a very interesting journey during this time that I've walked this path. And my goal here is to share a little bit with you. So as I reflected before, graduated from Cal State Northridge in '95. Had a few jobs. I talked about my job during the last year of my senior year of college at Savoy Pictures, and then my first job coming out of college, working for a liquor distributor, where I left that job on I would say it was definitely a bad note, but that's an understatement because I damn near cut my thumb off. Check out my video talking about that if you want more details. But after that experience, I told myself I'd never go back to that job, and I pride myself of being a man of my word, so I definitely did not. However, the repercussions of that was that since I left the job abruptly, I had to spend some time reflecting and unemployed. So when I finally got back to work, me being a business administrator, having a bachelor's degree in business administration with an emphasis in marketing, that emphasis in marketing actually means sales. It does, I came into it thinking I was going to go into advertising, working for an advertising agency. I did have an internship during school with the Minority Advertising Training Program, where I did have an internship at a firm that was producing infomercials. That's not quite an advertising agency, but I did get a taste of that advertising world. So I thought, hey, maybe I can work for a company like Chiat Day, or what are the big advertising agencies, Madison Avenue type agencies, as an account manager, an account executive, or something like that. However, I think my next job was basically selling life insurance. So I believe the company is no longer around. It's called John Hancock, so I can talk about it. But John Hancock, they sold life insurance. And when I started there, they told me, during my interview process that, in order to hire you on permanently, you'll have to come in the door with your life insurance license. So that's a state license. You study for it, you register with the state of California, and you go down and take an exam. So I did that, went down, passed the exam the very first time. So first day at the job, we're sitting in orientation. There were probably about 20 of us. Aside from myself, there was one other black person. It was a black woman, and I use that in quotes because I think she was mixed. So a lot of the white people didn't realize that she was black, but I knew she was black, and she knew that I knew she was black. So there were two of us out of, approximately 20. don't you know that I was the only person in that orientation who had my life insurance license? So I was kind of like, wait a minute, what? Why did they tell me I needed my life insurance license, but all these other people, they're like, oh no, I plan on sitting for my exam in a couple of weeks. And they were fine with that. So that was the very first indication that people don't always tell you the truth in the corporate world. So, yeah, selling life insurance, as I mentioned before, I'm not a salesperson by nature. It was something that I was forced to do. I've done telemarketing in the past. I hated it. But we started off selling long-term care insurance to senior citizens. So anyone over the age of approximately 60, 65. And it was a lot of phone calls, cold calling, sitting in not necessarily a boiler room, but an office, just manually dialing, getting a list of, I assume it was cold calling. It may have been slightly warm. It was probably phone numbers of people who had expressed interest in long-term care insurance in the past. I had absolutely no luck. So I remember one of the senior people who was mentoring us, he told me that my voice was too monotone. I needed to get some inflection in my voice. And, I was like, okay, I understand. So I did my best. My personality is what it is. I mean, obviously, we can act, we can learn to put forth certain enthusiasm. But I can honestly say I did the best that I could. And, I was getting absolutely no luck. Maybe I got a couple of appointments. I was able to set a couple of appointments, but they led to nothing. And the other black person that was there, I remember she came to me one time and she said one of our cohorts that was in our orientation, a white woman, she said to her, oh, do you think Achilles having problems because he's black? And then she said to her, at least is what she told me, well, what do you think? Is that my issue as well? So that just told me, that's how I know that they didn't realize that she was black as well. But so when she told me this, I was like, wait a minute, am I in a hostile environment? And the answer is yes. Hostility doesn't come in, all hostility doesn't come in the same shape or form. A lot of hostility comes with smiles on their faces. I remember when I first started, it was a salesperson there. He was a young white guy. He was a little older than me, but let's just say he was about 30. He would, when he would see me, he would just slap me on my back. Hey, buddy. And I'm just like, okay. That was kind of weird to me because that's not what we do where I'm from. That's considered a little disrespectful. But, these are just culture shocks that I had to work with. I had to work through. But suffice to say, I didn't last long at John Hancock. Approximately 30 days. I, along with the other person of color, we moved on to a different insurance company. This one was more of a multi-level marketing, and I've never done well in multi-level marketing firms and those type of organizational structures, so I may have lasted an additional 2 or 3 weeks. During that 6 or 7 week time period, though, in addition to my life insurance credential, my state certification, or license that is, I also earned a series, I believe it was series 6-3. It was where I was licensed to sell mutual funds in the state of California. So I forget which one is which. 6 and 6.3, they're slightly different. And then obviously there's a Series 7, which is more for stocks and bonds. But bottom line, I no longer wanted to do any type of sales because that left a very bad taste in my mouth about sales. Not just the cold calling aspect, but selling things to people who really didn't need it, because most of these people that was calling, they already had long-term care insurance. And we were trying, they were encouraging us to sell them more long-term care insurance, right? So I'm the type of person, which is, I'm not a hard salesperson. If you don't need something and I feel like this is not gonna benefit you, it's not gonna be a win-win situation, I'm not gonna push you. But that type of salesperson, at least in that field, at least back in those days, rarely was successful. So I kind of bounced around from job to job for the next, I would say, year and a half. I did a lot of working for free, working on music video sets, as a production assistant, as a assistant director, a first AD. I was on a music video where I was actually a first AD, and that was actually fun, but I was doing that only for the experience and only for the love. And as a young man in LA, I actually, there were a lot of females around, so I got some attention. Let's just say that. So that part was fun. I never stopped writing. So on one of these music video sets, I met someone who connected me with a magazine, an industry publication, not sure if they're still around, called the Urban Network. So they were in Burbank, and I actually started writing for them freelance, just really kind of just writing rap music reviews. And I still have that portfolio to this day. So that was 1996. I did that for 2 or 3, maybe 4 months, writing music reviews, getting better and better, honing my skill. I was doing all this work for free, but I was actually getting perks. This is during the time where, CDs were king. So everyone had CDs. That was the medium of the day. And I would get free CDs because they would just get crates of CDs of new artists. So that's the very first time I ever heard of Jay-Z. It was actually a frat brother who worked at the Urban Network, and he was like, yeah, just dig through these crates. You can take any CD you want. As a matter of fact, and he pulled out Reasonable Doubt. He said, check out this dude. He's dope. His name is Jay-Z. As soon as I got in my car, as soon as I got off work, I put in Reasonable Doubt. And from that moment, I was like, oh shit. Politics as Usual. The very first track on that album was featuring Mary J. Blige. And I was like, who is this guy? So, yeah. I'm not ashamed to admit, I was a Jay-Z fan. Traditionally, he's dope. I'm talking about his music. It's not really about what you think about him personally. But yeah, his music was the sign of the times. So that's how I was introduced to Jay-Z working at the Urban Network, as well as Erykah Badu. And I'm talking about their music. I didn't meet them personally. Erykah Badu, when she first came out, her first hit, On and On, her marketing pitch was that she sounded like Billie Holiday. And if you listen closely, you'll catch the resemblance. So that's really how she came out. Oh, she sounds like she's a modern day Billie Holiday. So during this time, I did get to meet Outkast. This is when they had already dropped Southern Playalistic Cadillac Funky Music. That was in '94. And then they were just dropping their second album. What was that? ATLians? The one with elevators on it. So they came into the office. I got a chance to take a picture with them. I wish I can find that picture to this day. Those are the days before digital. So, who knows where that picture is. But I did have a good time. I got a chance to go to some parties. But eventually, it was at a point where I'm talking to one of my frat brothers, one of my Sans that, we pledged together. And I was just telling him, I was like, man, LA ain't really doing it. Like, what's up, man? Let's, I have a cousin that lives in Atlanta. Let's check out Atlanta. Atlanta is like supposed to be the new hype, right? They had just had the Olympics in '96. And everybody was talking about how they were Chocolate City and all that. So I was just like, man, fuck LA, let's move to Atlanta. And little did I know, he was with it. He was like, cool. I'm tired of LA too. And I was like, word? So we decided to pack both of our cars with whatever we can fit in our cars. At the time, I was driving the Jeep Wrangler. I think he had a Honda. Yeah, no, he used to have a Hyundai, but yeah, I think he had a Honda at the time. And so, these weren't big cars, but we just stacked them with boxes and drove from LA to Atlanta. It took us like 2.5 days, maybe 3 days, the day after Christmas. We got there the day before New Year's Eve. So that's a whole different story, my days in Atlanta. But that's how I stepped into 1997. But before that, maybe a couple months before I moved to Atlanta, the Urban Network, they put me on their payroll. And so I was making progress, although I was only making $8 an hour. So in hindsight, I probably should have stayed with it, kept pushing, parlayed some of those relationships that I was building little by little, brick by brick. But I lacked patience. So I wanted to see what was next. I was like, dude, I'm not getting no younger. At the time, I was like 25, but I was looking at myself like, dude, I'm damn near over the hill. I didn't realize how young I was back then. But I wanted to get it moving. I wanted to get it cracking. And stuff was just not moving fast enough for me. So, I am on the payroll finally at the Urban Network, making $8 an hour, writing. At this time, my responsibilities had expanded a little bit, so I'm at the reception desk answering phones. I have been in and out of the music and entertainment industries for a few years prior to that, doing little internships here and there. So, I started to meet people, I started to go to events, but it was really all about the money for me. I was just like, dude, forget all this, not just fame. Obviously, I didn't have no fame, but forget all this glory, all the fact, saying that, oh, I was in a room with this person. Oh, I went to this party. Oh, I was like, dude, where's the money? I'm trying to get paid. I've worked hard. So, bottom line, when I moved to Atlanta, it seemed like that's when the calls start coming in. Because I left I kept my phone number in LA, in Inglewood. I kept it on, because I was living at home with my mother. So I would call and check my voicemails, or my answering machine messages here and there. And I was getting calls like, oh yeah, I got recommended by somebody, They said you were a good worker. And I'm just like, damn, I'm in Atlanta. I can't do nothing. I'm calling them back saying, yeah, sorry, I moved to Atlanta. Oh, okay. So, yeah, that was a lessons learned right there. When you do something, stick with it. Don't just do it and then lollygag and then move on to the next. Stick with it, see it through. Because you never know what's going to happen. Excuse me. Getting over a little cold here. But yeah. So in the end, I look back on it and I just wonder what would have been if I would have never moved to Atlanta. If I would have just stayed in LA, stuck with it. Even though I did have some interesting experiences in Atlanta. And I'm kind of glad that's part of my story. But you always wonder, what if? So, the moral to this story is that you are the author of your own book. Always remember that. You write out your plot points and you execute them. You never know how the story is going to unfold because you're writing it at that moment and you are determining the outcome. So life is like a story and you are the main character. You are the protagonist. So what type of hero do you want to be? Every character has a character arc, which means that character grows and changes. So always be aware of that. And there are going to be plot points. There are going to be twists. There are going to be turns. There are going to be crises. But in the end, at the resolution period, you are going to emerge victorious. Always believe that. And if you don't believe that your life has been interesting, keep a journal. Keep a journal. Keep it over a long period of time. Reflect on this journal. Look back on that journal. Because I have journals that I've looked back on since the 90s. And I kind of, it's interesting to weigh where you were, what you were thinking, what your priorities were at that time, how much you've grown. And so much that happens in your life that you forget about. I read through some of my journal entries. I'm like, whoa, I completely forgot about this. Wow. You know, your life could be a movie. You never know. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share for today. Check out my website, lucidfuturism.com. I'm wearing some Lucid Futurism gear. Check out lucidfuturism.com. Check out the book. Check out my YouTube channel. Subscribe. Check out the merchandise. And this is the last day or two of the Kickstarter campaign. So check that out as well. There are links in my on my website. In the meanwhile, stay blessed, stay lucid, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.